I've never been good at talking about money. It feels too personal, too raw, almost shameful. But lately, it's been the only thing I think about. Maybe sharing it will help me breathe a little easier. I'm 27, living in a small, rented apartment on the edge of the city. Every morning, I wake up with a pit in my stomach, not because I'm facing some big crisis that day, but because the weight of months, maybe years, of financial pressure settles over me like a thick fog. It's a slow, relentless kind of pressure, not sudden, but constant. Like water wearing down rock, my income just can't keep up with the rising tide of expenses around me. I work full-time in customer service at a mid-sized company. It's not glamorous, but it pays the bills, mostly. Over the years, my salary has barely nudged upward, while rent, groceries, utilities, and everything else just climb, seemingly without end. I watch prices go up on things I once took for granted: the bread I buy, the gas in my car, even the internet bill. Sometimes, I feel like I'm trapped in a game I never signed up to play, where the rules keep changing, and the goalpost moves further away every time I blink. This morning was no different. I made my usual cup of coffee at home, but instead of enjoying it, I found myself calculating how many more days I could stretch my grocery budget this week. A carton of eggs, some canned tomatoes, and pasta, that's what I get. I remind myself that buying fresh veggies or meat is a luxury right now, not a staple. When I add up the numbers, it feels like a slow squeeze on my chest. Sometimes, I lie awake at night thinking about what I'm missing out on. My friends talk about traveling, moving out, upgrading their phones or cars. I smile when they share those stories, but inside, I'm weighed down by the knowledge that these things are dreams I've had to postpone indefinitely. I've had to push aside hopes like going back to school, saving for a down payment on a house, or even taking a real vacation. The idea of investing in myself feels like a cruel joke when every paycheck vanishes into bills the second it arrives. The emotional toll is heavy. I try to hide it during the day, putting on a brave face at work, laughing with colleagues, and acting like everything is fine. But beneath the surface, I'm constantly anxious, sometimes overwhelmed by a sense of hopelessness. It's hard to explain to anyone who's never been in this situation how money can affect your self-worth, your peace of mind, your sense of freedom. When you're always worried about money, it feels like you're not really living, just surviving. There are days when the stress becomes paralyzing. I've canceled plans with friends because I just couldn't afford the small costs: a drink, a ride home, even the ticket to a movie. Social isolation creeps in quietly, and with it, a feeling that I'm slipping further away from the life I once imagined. The hardest part is feeling invisible, like no one around me really understands how exhausting this all is. Coping isn't easy. I've tried budgeting apps, cutting back on every non-essential expense, and even taking on odd jobs here and there to make ends meet. Some weeks are better than others, but the relief is always temporary. I find small pockets of joy in simple things: a walk in the park, an old favorite song, cooking a meal from scratch, moments that remind me I'm still here, still fighting. Sometimes, I write in a journal, letting the feelings pour out, hoping that putting them into words might lessen their weight. What keeps me going? Hope. Not the kind of bright, shining hope I had in my early 20s, but a quieter, more stubborn hope. I hope for a future where I can breathe freely without counting every cent, where I can take risks without fearing financial ruin. I dream of a time when I can save instead of scrimp, plan instead of panic. It's a slow, uphill climb, but it's the only direction I want to move in. The economic environment today feels like a storm that never clears: inflation, rising rents, stagnant wages, all colliding to make everyday life feel like a balancing act on a wire that frays a little more each day. But even in this struggle, I try to remind myself that my worth isn't defined by my bank balance or the possessions I lack. I am more than my financial situation, even if it feels like that's what the world cares about most. So here I am, sharing this story not because I want pity, but because I want someone, anyone, to know that this isn't just about numbers on a page. It's about real people, real feelings, and real lives caught in the grind. And maybe, just maybe, by saying it out loud, I'll find a little bit of light in this long, hard tunnel. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments, I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. I never thought I'd be the kind of person to talk openly about money struggles. It always felt like a private, almost shameful thing. But lately, it's all I can think about. Every day feels like a tug-of-war between trying to keep my head above water and watching the water slowly rise around me. It's exhausting, and honestly, it's starting to wear me down. I'm 27 now, with a steady job and a handful of responsibilities, but it feels like the economic world around me is stacked against my every move. I remember when I first got my job right out of college. I was so proud, like I had finally crossed some invisible finish line. The paycheck wasn't huge, but it was enough to cover rent, food, and a few small pleasures. I could imagine myself saving up for a little apartment, maybe taking a weekend trip somewhere. But that was before rent hikes every few months, before gas prices seemed to double overnight, before the grocery bills got so high that even buying fresh fruit felt like a luxury. Now, it's different. Every choice feels calculated, like a series of compromises. I find myself skipping meals or eating cheaper, less healthy food just to make the money last. The other day, I stared at my phone, scrolling through an online menu, trying to convince myself to order something, anything, that wasn't instant noodles. But it just didn't feel worth it. I thought, maybe tomorrow. Tomorrow often becomes next week, and then next month. Bills come first. Rent, utilities, phone, internet. Then groceries, transportation, and if there's anything left, maybe a coffee with a friend or a new shirt. But there rarely is. There's this constant underlying stress, like a weight pressing down on my chest. It's the kind of pressure that makes it hard to sleep at night, and harder to wake up feeling hopeful. The worst part is feeling stuck in a system that seems designed to keep me right here, working harder and harder, but never quite moving forward. Income barely budges while expenses climb relentlessly. It's like running on a treadmill that speeds up every time you think you can catch a break. I've applied for raises and promotions, but they're either slow in coming or non-existent. Even when I do get a little more money, prices have usually risen faster, erasing any progress. Sometimes I catch myself daydreaming about what life could be like without this constant financial strain. I imagine waking up in a space that feels like home, not just a cramped room shared with a roommate to split the rent. I picture going to the doctor without worrying about the cost, taking a weekend trip to see the ocean, or even just dining out without anxiety. But these dreams feel more distant than ever, like stars just out of reach. It's hard not to feel defeated when your hopes have to be shelved indefinitely. I've had to postpone going back to school, even though I crave learning and better opportunities. I've put off seeing family more often because traveling is too expensive. Even things like saving for retirement or emergencies feel impossible when every dollar is earmarked for survival. It's frustrating to work so hard and still feel like you're losing ground. To cope, I've developed a few small rituals, some comfort in the chaos. I write in a journal late at night, spilling out everything I can't say during the day. Sometimes I listen to podcasts or read stories from others who face similar struggles, reminding myself I'm not alone. When I can, I walk in the park or sit by the river, letting the fresh air and quiet calm my racing thoughts. These moments don't solve anything, but they give me a little space to breathe. I also try to focus on the small wins. Paying a bill on time feels like a victory. Making it through a week without an unexpected expense breaking me down feels like a win. When I manage to save even a tiny bit of money, I celebrate quietly, knowing how hard it is. I'm learning to be kind to myself, to accept that sometimes just surviving is enough. Still, the pressure seeps into everything, my relationships, my mental health, my sense of self-worth. It's hard to be fully present with friends when your mind is tangled up in financial worries. I sometimes withdraw, afraid to admit how hard it really is. There's a shame in not having made it yet, in feeling like I'm constantly behind while everyone else seems to be moving forward. But maybe there's also a quiet strength in this. In the way I keep showing up, day after day, despite the setbacks. In the small choices I make to hold on to hope, even when it feels faint. I still dream of a future where money isn't the biggest obstacle, where I can take risks, chase passions, and feel secure in my own skin. It might take years, maybe decades, but I believe it's possible. For now, I'll keep navigating this uneven terrain, one cautious step at a time. I'll keep finding moments of peace in the chaos, small reasons to keep going. Because even though the system feels like a trap, it hasn't crushed me yet. And that, somehow, feels like a kind of victory. This is my story, messy, painful, but real. A young adult trying to survive and maybe, just maybe, thrive in a world where the cost of living keeps rising faster than my paycheck ever will. I never thought I'd find myself in this kind of financial squeeze. Not this young, not this desperate, and not feeling so completely stuck. But here I am, living paycheck to paycheck, watching my bank account shrink like sand slipping through my fingers, while the cost of everything around me, rent, groceries, gas, seems to balloon overnight. It's like running on a treadmill that keeps speeding up, and no matter how fast I move, I'm barely staying in place. Or worse, I'm falling behind. Every morning starts the same way, the alarm goes off, and as soon as I open my eyes, the weight of money worries hits me. I lie there for a few minutes, scrolling through my banking app, hoping for a change, any sign of breathing room, but it's always the same. The numbers look grim. Then the mental checklist kicks in. Did I get paid enough to cover rent? Will I have enough left for groceries and the bus pass? What about those surprise expenses, like a busted phone screen or a medical bill? The economic environment around me feels unforgiving, like a storm that keeps pounding relentlessly. Inflation is the word everyone throws around, but it doesn't really capture the way it feels personally. It's not just about prices going up, it's about opportunities shrinking. The job market looks better on paper than in reality. Sure, there are jobs out there, but they don't pay enough to keep up with rising costs, or they demand long hours and unstable schedules that make planning impossible. I remember when I first started working full-time. I thought I was doing okay. My paycheck wasn't huge, but it covered the essentials, and sometimes I even treated myself to a night out or bought a book. I dreamed then, had plans, traveling, going back to school, saving for a place of my own. Those dreams felt tangible, like they were within reach if I just kept grinding. But now? Those dreams feel like luxury items, things reserved for someone else's life. I've had to postpone going back to college because the tuition feels insurmountable without a steady emergency fund. I've put off visits to friends and family in other cities because the bus fare or plane ticket is just too expensive. Even the thought of traveling, something that once sparked excitement and hope, now feels like a distant, unattainable fantasy. I often find myself asking, how did I get here? Was it a single decision? Or just the slow erosion of small setbacks and rising bills? I don't want to blame anyone or anything, except maybe the system itself. The economy feels rigged against people like me, young adults trying to build a future in a world where the cost of living outpaces income growth by a mile. It's a system that makes it easier to stay stuck than to break free. On tough days, the stress becomes almost physical. I get headaches, my chest feels tight, and sometimes the anxiety creeps in at night, making it hard to sleep. I lie awake wondering if I'll ever be able to get ahead, if I'll ever feel secure enough to stop worrying about the next bill or rent payment. I don't talk about these things much, because admitting the struggle feels like exposing a vulnerability that some people might judge or misunderstand. But the truth is, it's exhausting. Emotionally, mentally, and physically draining. Coping is a constant balancing act. I try to find little ways to ease the pressure, cutting back on eating out, swapping expensive coffee for homemade, searching for deals on essentials. I keep a tight budget, often sacrificing things I enjoy just to keep the lights on. Sometimes I pick up odd jobs or freelance gigs, even when they pay less per hour, just to stretch my income further. And I remind myself to breathe, to focus on small wins, paying off a credit card balance, finding a cheaper grocery store, or simply making it through the month without missing a payment. There are moments when hope sneaks back in. Maybe I hear about a new job opportunity, or a friend shares how they saved money on something I thought was impossible. I remind myself that this isn't forever. That maybe one day, I'll have the financial freedom to pursue those old dreams again, traveling to new places, going back to school, maybe even buying my own place. But for now, those dreams live quietly in the background, softened by reality. What keeps me going is the belief that this hardship is temporary, that with patience and persistence, I can push through. But some days it's hard not to feel invisible, like I'm trapped in a cycle where expenses grow faster than my paycheck, where financial freedom is a door that stays locked just out of reach. So, I keep moving forward, holding on to the hope that someday soon, the numbers will start to work in my favor, not just barely keeping up, but truly getting ahead. Because despite the struggle, I still want more for myself. I still want to live a life where money isn't the constant source of fear and stress. I want to feel free. And that hope, even if fragile, is enough to keep me trying. It's hard to explain what it feels like to be stuck in this relentless financial squeeze, like trying to breathe underwater without knowing when you'll ever surface. Every morning I wake up, and the first thought that crosses my mind is, how am I going to make this month work? It's not some abstract worry, it's a pressing, physical weight sitting on my chest. I'm 27 now, and for as long as I can remember, money has been a source of stress rather than comfort. Growing up, I never really understood how the economy worked or why bills kept rising faster than people's paychecks. I thought if I got a decent job and worked hard, things would naturally fall into place. But the reality is something else entirely. Right now, I work in retail. It's steady, but far from lucrative. My paycheck barely covers rent, utilities, groceries, and the mandatory monthly payments, phone, insurance, the car loan I took to get to work. Every month, I do the math over and over, balancing expenses against income, trying to squeeze out every dollar without slipping into overdraft fees or debt. But the numbers never quite add up. They never seem to stretch far enough. Rent alone takes almost half my paycheck. The apartment isn't much, just a small one-bedroom on the outskirts of the city, but even that's a constant source of anxiety. Landlords have raised prices again, citing market demand and maintenance costs, but to me, it just means more pressure. I've thought about moving back in with my parents, but that feels like admitting defeat. And honestly, with my hours, it's hard to afford even the cheapest places near good public transport, which I need because owning a car is another expense I can barely justify but can't give up. Food used to be a joy for me. Cooking, trying new recipes, sharing meals with friends, it was a way to relax and connect. Now, grocery shopping feels like a math test, scanning every price, hunting for sales, and avoiding things that might break the budget but still leave me hungry. I've learned to live on beans, rice, frozen vegetables, and the occasional canned soup. It's not about choice, it's about survival. Bills keep creeping up, like a tide that won't recede. Gas prices soared last year, and although I don't drive much, the ripple effect is everywhere. Utilities have gone up, insurance premiums climb, and even my internet bill feels like a luxury at times. I've cut back on everything, no more streaming subscriptions, no eating out, no new clothes unless something falls apart completely. Birthday gifts have turned into handmade cards or quick texts. I tell myself it's just temporary, but the months stretch on and on. There's a quiet loneliness in all of this. I'm surrounded by people who seem to have their lives together, friends buying homes, traveling, moving up in their careers. Sometimes I wonder if I'm the only one feeling this way, trapped in a cycle that's hard to break. Social invitations become a stress point rather than a pleasure because even a night out means spending money I don't really have. I often say no, not because I don't want to see people, but because I'm exhausted thinking about how it'll affect my budget. Emotionally, it's draining. Anxiety is a constant companion. The phone rings, and my heart jumps, fearing it's a debt collector or some unexpected bill. I wake up in the middle of the night, staring at the ceiling, running through every expense, every dollar, every unpaid balance. It's like my brain won't let me rest because it's busy calculating risks. What if the car breaks down? What if I lose my job? What if something happens to my health? I've learned to cope by holding on to small victories. When I manage to save a little, I celebrate it quietly. When I stretch a paycheck an extra week, it feels like a win. I keep a journal where I write down my goals and dreams, even though they feel distant right now. Sometimes I meet up with a friend for a walk in the park or just sit outside with a coffee I made at home, trying to find moments of peace in the chaos. My dreams haven't disappeared, but they've been shelved indefinitely. I used to want to travel, see the world beyond this city, maybe even study more or start a side business. Now those ambitions feel like luxuries. I dream of stability, of not waking up with that heavy weight on my chest. I dream of a future where I can breathe freely, where money isn't a source of constant fear. I remind myself that this isn't forever. That maybe someday the economy will shift, wages will rise, and prices will level out. But it's hard not to feel trapped in a system that seems designed to keep people like me running in place. Expenses grow faster than income, and no matter how hard I work, I'm just barely holding on. It's like running on a treadmill set to speed up every month, and I'm exhausted. Still, I keep moving forward. Because giving up isn't an option. I hold on to hope, even when it feels fragile. And some days, that hope is enough to keep me going. Some days, it feels like I'm running on a treadmill that's speeding up, and no matter how hard I push, I'm stuck in the same place. Or worse, sometimes it feels like I'm actually moving backwards. That's the best way I can describe what living with this constant financial pressure feels like: trapped, exhausted, and barely holding on. I'm 27 now, working a steady 9 to 5 in marketing, a job I thought would be the stepping stone to something bigger. But here I am, still renting a tiny, overpriced apartment in the city, trying to stretch every dollar like it's going to make a difference. The rent eats up nearly half my paycheck, and everything else, utilities, groceries, transportation, seems to creep higher every month. It's like the cost of living has its own heartbeat, and it's sinking faster than my income can keep up. I remember when I graduated college, full of hope and ideas. I imagined having the freedom to travel, to move into a nice place with my own space, maybe even start saving for a house one day. But those dreams feel more like distant stars now, beautiful, but impossibly out of reach. Instead, I'm hyper-aware of every expense. A night out with friends? That's a luxury I have to justify. New clothes? Only if something absolutely falls apart. Even treating myself to a coffee feels like a splurge. The hardest part is that none of this is because I'm careless or lazy. I work hard, sometimes 50, 60 hours a week, juggling side gigs just to make ends meet. But the system feels rigged. Prices for everything keep rising: gas, groceries, rent, but my paycheck barely inches up. Inflation, they call it, and it sounds so clinical, so detached. But it's real. It's the reason why the same meal I bought for $8 last year costs $12 now. It's why I keep putting off dental work, because it's too expensive, even though I know it'll cause problems down the line. It's why I avoid going to the doctor when something feels off, afraid of the bill that might come with it. Some nights, I lie awake thinking about how I got here. How did my life turn into a constant balancing act where one wrong move, like a broken phone or a car repair, could send me spiraling? I'm caught in this cycle where I have to say no to the things that make life joyful because I'm always prioritizing survival. I'm exhausted, and sometimes I wonder if it's going to get any better. Emotionally, it wears me down in ways I didn't expect. There's this constant undercurrent of stress and anxiety that colors everything I do. It's hard to be present when you're always worrying about the next bill or the looming credit card statement. It feels isolating, too. Friends don't always understand why I can't join them for dinner or a weekend trip. They see the surface, the job, the smile, but they don't see the strain beneath. I've learned to hide it, not because I want to, but because I'm tired of explaining. It's easier to say I can't or maybe next time than to talk about the fear that I'll never be able to catch up. I've found ways to cope, small things that keep me afloat. I've become a master at budgeting and couponing, learning which stores have the best deals and when to buy in bulk. I started cooking all my meals at home, turning to YouTube videos to learn how to make cheap but tasty dishes. I try to find free or low-cost activities, library events, hikes, community meetups, just to fill the social void without spending money. Some days, these little victories feel like lifelines. But even with all that, the weight of financial pressure sometimes feels like it's crushing my spirit. I catch myself daydreaming about quitting the job, moving somewhere cheaper, even taking a break from the constant grind. But then reality hits. I have student loans, monthly bills, and responsibilities that don't pause. It's a cycle of wanting to break free but feeling chained to a system that never slows down. Despite all this, I still have hope, buried deep but persistent. I hope for a time when my paycheck can cover more than just the basics, when I can save a little for emergencies or invest in experiences that make life richer. I dream of buying a small apartment someday, a place that's mine, where I don't have to live in fear of rent hikes. I want to travel, to see the world beyond my cramped city apartment, to feel the freedom I always imagined was possible after college. These dreams keep me moving forward, even on the days when it feels like I'm drowning. I try to remind myself that this isn't the whole story of my life, that the struggle I'm living through now is part of a bigger journey. But some nights, the frustration and exhaustion are overwhelming, and I wonder how many more years I can keep living like this before I lose myself completely. So I hold on to those moments of joy when they come, a good conversation with a friend, a sunset after a long day, a paycheck that finally covers all the bills without leaving me empty. They remind me that there's still light in this, even when it's hard to see. And maybe one day, when the treadmill slows down, I'll look back on this time and see how strong I became just by surviving. Until then, I'll keep running. I never imagined my 20s would feel like this, a constant squeeze, a slow suffocation by numbers that never quite add up. Each month, I sit at my tiny kitchen table, bills spread out like a cruel game of solitaire I'm doomed to lose. The rent, utilities, groceries, gas, the ever-growing credit card balance, each expense climbs a little higher, faster than I can earn. And the paycheck? It's stubbornly the same, or sometimes even less after taxes and deductions. It's like running on a treadmill that's speeding up just to remind me how stuck I really am. I graduated college full of hope. Bright-eyed and ready to take on the world with my degree in hand. But the world had other plans. I found work, yes, but it pays just enough to cover the essentials. Essentials that feel like luxury these days: fresh vegetables, a dentist appointment, a bus pass, the occasional night out with friends. Things I thought would be routine. Things I thought would be within reach. But no. The economy shifted, and with it, my reality. Prices everywhere are climbing. Rent went up again last year, as did the cost of electricity. I try to be smart, cut corners, swap dinners out for cooking at home, buy used clothes, cancel my streaming subscriptions, skip the coffee shop. But the truth is, even those sacrifices barely make a dent. It's exhausting. Every decision is a calculation. Can I afford this? Is this necessary? Will this push me closer to the edge? Sometimes, when I'm alone in my small apartment late at night, I feel overwhelmed by it all. It's like I'm caught in this invisible trap where no matter how hard I work, no matter how much I tighten my belt, the gap between what I earn and what I need just grows. The system feels rigged. It's this unspoken pressure, this relentless current pulling me under, and there's nowhere to swim to catch a breath. I know I'm not alone. My friends are struggling too. Some have moved back in with their parents, others have taken second jobs, and many have put off major life milestones, buying a car, getting married, even thinking about having kids, because the math just doesn't make sense anymore. We all joke sometimes about how adulting is just a cruel joke, but beneath the humor is a deep, gnawing anxiety. I find myself constantly juggling work and trying to stay sane. The emotional toll is heavy. Some days, I wake up with a pit in my stomach, worrying about the unexpected, a medical bill, a broken phone, a sudden car repair. These worries aren't just fleeting thoughts, they settle deep in my chest and don't let go. I've learned to mask it, laugh it off, but inside I feel vulnerable and alone. Coping has become its own challenge. I try to focus on small joys, the way the sun hits my window in the morning, a call with a friend, writing in my journal. I find comfort in routines, in moments of quiet. Sometimes, I binge-watch shows or dive into books to escape, even if just briefly. Exercise helps clear my head, but even a gym membership feels like a luxury these days. I've started going for long walks, just to move and breathe. Dreams, though? They've had to wait. I used to dream of traveling, of moving to a city with more opportunity, of saving enough to start my own business. I thought I'd be buying my own place by now or at least be on track for it. But now, those dreams seem distant, almost like illusions. I've had to push them aside, focus on the immediate, paying the rent, keeping the lights on, making sure I don't fall deeper into debt. Sometimes I wonder what the future holds. Will things get better? Will the economy stabilize, or am I doomed to live paycheck to paycheck for the foreseeable future? I hold on to hope because I have to. Hope is all that keeps me going sometimes. But it's hard not to feel frustrated with a system that seems to value profit over people, that lets costs rise but wages stagnate, that keeps us trapped in cycles of financial stress. I don't want pity or sympathy. I just want honesty, a recognition that for many of us, life isn't a story of climbing ladders and chasing dreams, but of survival and resilience in the face of an uphill battle. I want to believe there's a way out, a path to stability and peace. But for now, I keep moving forward, one day at a time, trying to find balance in a world that often feels out of reach. And maybe that's enough, for now, at least. I never thought I'd feel this way, like I'm running on a treadmill that's speeding up just as fast as I can move, but I'm not actually going anywhere. Every month, the bills pile up, the rent goes higher, groceries get more expensive, and my paycheck somehow feels smaller. It's this constant pressure, like a weight sitting on my chest, making it hard to breathe, let alone dream. I'm 26, living in a city that's supposed to be full of opportunities, but it often feels like opportunities here come with a price tag I can't afford. I work full-time at a decent job, enough to pay rent and cover the basics, but barely enough to think about anything beyond that. I used to have dreams. Big ones. I wanted to travel, to move into a nicer apartment, to save enough to someday buy a home, maybe even start a family without worrying if the next paycheck would cover diapers or doctor bills. But those dreams are tucked away now, buried under a mountain of unpaid bills, rising costs, and a growing sense of hopelessness. Every day feels like a balancing act. I check my bank account more times than I'd like to admit, hoping to find a little cushion that never seems to appear. The grocery list gets shorter. Instead of fresh vegetables, I buy the cheapest canned stuff. Instead of new clothes, I wear the same old things a little longer, hoping they hold up just one more season. I turn off the heating earlier in the winter, layer up in blankets, and try not to think about the rising energy bills. Social invitations have become a source of anxiety. When friends ask to grab coffee or go out to dinner, I always have to do the mental math first. Can I really afford this? The answer is almost always no. I tell myself it's okay, that I'm saving money, but really, it just feels isolating. I'm watching life happen around me, the spontaneous laughs, the weekend plans, and I'm stuck on the sidelines, counting cents and wishing things were different. The emotional toll is heavy. There are nights I lie awake staring at the ceiling, worrying about what happens if the rent doesn't get paid on time, if the car breaks down, if there's an emergency I can't cover. It's exhausting to carry this constant fear, to feel like every choice I make is about survival rather than living. Sometimes, I get overwhelmed by shame, like I'm failing somehow, even though I know deep down this isn't my fault. The economy is broken, the system stacked against people like me who work hard but still struggle to get ahead. I cope the best way I can. I've gotten into small routines that bring some comfort, journaling, late-night walks, and trying to find joy in simple things like a good book or a cup of tea. I remind myself that this isn't forever, though it doesn't always feel true. I reach out to a few close friends when the weight feels unbearable. And sometimes, I dream. I let myself imagine a future where I'm not tethered to this cycle of scarcity. A future where I'm not counting every dollar but can spend freely on things that bring me happiness and security. Yet, those dreams feel distant, almost unattainable. I've had to postpone plans that once seemed so natural, saving for a vacation, furthering my education, even starting a side business I was passionate about. Each no chips away at my confidence, making it harder to believe that better days are coming. But in these quiet moments, when the noise of bills and rising costs fades, I hold on to a fragile hope. I remind myself that this pressure, this struggle, doesn't define me. It's just a chapter in my story. I'm still here, still fighting, still dreaming, even if those dreams are quieter now. And maybe that's enough for today. Some days, it feels like I'm just treading water, not really moving forward, but desperately trying not to drown. The weight of money, or rather the lack of it, presses down on me every single day, relentless and unforgiving. I'm 27, supposed to be in the prime of building a life, making choices that set me up for the future. Instead, I'm stuck in a loop where bills arrive faster than my paycheck, where every decision feels like a compromise, and the horizon of real financial freedom feels impossibly distant. It's not like I'm not working hard. I have a steady job, office hours, a decent title, some benefits, but the pay barely scratches the surface of what life costs these days. Rent alone takes up nearly half my monthly income. And rent isn't just rent anymore, it's utilities, internet, groceries, transportation, insurance, student loan payments, and those little things that add up, coffee here, a needed haircut there. Somehow, each month the sum grows while my salary barely budges. Inflation is this invisible monster that keeps making the numbers on my bills bigger, but my paycheck just stays the same. Most mornings, I wake up and stare at my bank app, hoping the number hasn't dropped too low. It feels absurd, this mix of gratitude for what I have and frustration at what I don't. There's this knot in my stomach, a kind of constant anxious hum that never really goes away. I tell myself it's just temporary, that I'm paying my dues. But the truth is, it's hard to believe in temporary when you've been stuck like this for years. The economic environment feels like a tightening noose. Every policy change, every market fluctuation, it trickles down in ways that touch my life deeply. When gas prices spike, I can't help but notice the extra strain on my grocery budget because transportation costs go up for suppliers, and suddenly eggs and bread cost more. When rent hikes are announced, it's not just a number on a paper, it's a question of whether I eat more or pay less attention to the little aches in my old apartment walls. I try to keep track of the news, hoping to understand it better, to feel less powerless, but often it just reminds me how little control I have. My daily routine is shaped by this pressure. I carry a mental checklist constantly. How much can I afford to spend on lunch? Is it better to skip the train and walk, even if it makes me late sometimes? Should I buy generic brands or try to stretch my budget with coupons? I'm always calculating, negotiating with myself about wants versus needs. It's exhausting. Sometimes I miss the days when spending a little on a night out or ordering takeout didn't feel like a betrayal to my bank balance. Socially, it's complicated too. Invitations to dinners or weekend trips often turn into internal debates. Can I afford this? Will I have to skip next week's groceries if I go? I've said no more times than I can count, and the loneliness that sometimes follows feels almost as heavy as the bills. Friends don't always get it, and I don't blame them. It's hard to explain that it's not about choice or laziness, it's about a system that feels rigged, where expenses rise relentlessly but wages stay stubbornly flat. At night, when everything quiets down, the weight of it all settles in. I lie awake thinking about the dreams I once had, traveling, buying a home, maybe going back to school for that degree I shelved. Those dreams now feel like luxury items, not essentials. I've postponed so much, saving for a down payment feels like a joke when every paycheck disappears into bills. Taking a course to advance my career seems impossible when the cost alone is daunting, and there's no room left in my budget. The hope that these sacrifices are temporary feels fragile, like a thin thread I'm afraid might snap. Still, I try to find small ways to cope. Journaling helps me process the frustration without bottling it up. I've started cooking more at home, finding comfort in simple recipes that stretch ingredients. Exercise, even if just a walk around the block, sometimes clears my mind and reminds me there's still a life beyond this cycle. And sometimes, I reach out, talking to close friends or family, sharing pieces of this struggle. It's humbling, but it also reminds me I'm not alone. I want to believe that someday this will change. That the system will shift, that wages will catch up, that I'll have space to breathe and build again. I dream of a future where I can make decisions based on desire, not desperation. Where I can plan a vacation without calculating every penny. Where I can invest in myself without fear. But for now, those dreams are quiet, tucked away beneath the daily grind. The hardest part is the feeling of being trapped. It's like running on a treadmill that's speeding up, while the finish line keeps moving farther away. No matter how fast or hard I push, I'm still stuck in place. It's lonely, frustrating, and sometimes hopeless. But I keep going, because what else can I do? Because there's still a flicker of hope inside me that says, one day, this will get better. For now, I'll keep waking up, making the hard choices, and holding on to that hope, because even if the system feels like it's against me, I refuse to let it define who I am or my future. Hey, friends! If you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what can be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. I never thought I'd end up feeling like this, like I'm constantly drowning, barely keeping my head above water. But here I am, a young adult trying to make my way in a world that seems designed to squeeze every penny from me, no matter how hard I work or how careful I try to be. The weight of financial pressure isn't just about money, it's about the creeping sense of being trapped, of watching my dreams slip further away every single day. It starts with the basics. I wake up and before I even get out of bed, my mind races through all the bills I need to pay, the rent that's due next week, the groceries I need to stretch until my next paycheck, and the car that needs repairs but I have no extra cash to cover it. Each morning feels like stepping into quicksand. I know if I move too fast or make a wrong step, I'll sink deeper into stress and worry. The cost of living is rising so fast that my salary feels like it's barely moving. It's a cruel joke, expenses grow, prices climb, rent soars, and wages stay flat. I work full-time, often overtime, but it's never enough. Somehow, despite all the effort, I'm still behind. There's this constant, gnawing feeling that I'm running on a treadmill that's speeding up while I stay in the same spot. I remember a time, not too long ago, when I had hope. I had plans, big plans. I wanted to travel, to go back to school, to buy a small apartment someday. I dreamed about building a life where money wasn't a source of daily anxiety but a tool to help me grow and thrive. But the economic environment has forced me to put all those dreams on hold, indefinitely. Every decision feels like a negotiation with myself. Do I eat out tonight, or do I cook something cheap at home and save a few dollars? Should I skip the doctor's appointment because I can't afford the copay? Can I afford to fill up my gas tank this week, or will I need to bike even though it's 2 hours to work? These aren't just choices, they're compromises that chip away at my sense of dignity and security. The emotional toll is brutal. Some days, I feel a hollow ache inside, like I'm carrying a weight that no one else can see but that crushes me silently. I lie awake at night, heart racing, trying to figure out how to make next month's rent. It's exhausting to always be calculating, always stressed. It feels like I'm fighting a losing battle against a system built to keep people like me in place, just scraping by but never quite escaping. Sometimes, I catch myself daydreaming about a different life, one where money isn't the first thing I worry about when I wake up. I imagine waking up without that heavy cloud of anxiety pressing down on me. I picture traveling to new places without having to count every penny or taking courses that could lead to better job opportunities. But then reality snaps back. The rent is due, the bills pile up, and I have to shelve those dreams again. I cope the best I can. I've learned to stretch every dollar, hunt for sales, use public transportation, and find free ways to unwind. I cling to small moments of joy, a call with a friend, a quiet walk in the park, or a good book borrowed from the library. These little things keep me going, reminders that life isn't only about money, even if it feels like it sometimes. There's also guilt. Guilt for not being able to do more, for sometimes feeling like I'm failing myself and those who depend on me. I worry about the future. What happens if the economy gets worse? If rent keeps rising? If my job disappears? It's a scary place to be, not knowing if the next paycheck will be enough, or if a single unexpected expense will push me over the edge. But despite all this, there's still a flicker of hope. I hold on to the belief that things can change, that the hard work and sacrifice I'm putting in now might eventually pay off. I try to remind myself that this is a chapter, not the whole story. Someday, maybe I'll look back at this time and see how it shaped me, made me resilient, and prepared me for something better. For now, I keep moving forward, even when it's tough. Because giving up isn't an option, even if it feels like the weight of the system is trying to keep me down. One day, I hope to break free from this cycle. To live without fear of bills and expenses. To chase the dreams I've had to postpone for so long. And maybe, just maybe, that hope is enough to keep me afloat a little longer. Some days, I wake up feeling like I'm already running behind, like life's marathon started hours ago without me. It's a strange, heavy weight, this pressure that sits just beneath my ribs every morning when I open my eyes. It's not physical pain, exactly, but it feels like an invisible chain tightening a bit more every day. Financial pressure. The kind that's impossible to shake off. I'm in my mid-20s, technically an adult, but sometimes it doesn't feel like I've ever really gotten the chance to live like one. Instead, I'm trapped in this cycle where my expenses seem to grow faster than my income, no matter how hard I hustle. I work a full-time job with decent hours, but the paycheck that arrives every 2 weeks feels like a fraction of what I need. Rent, utilities, groceries, phone bill, student loan, the list never ends. Every month, there's a new emergency or surprise cost that I have to squeeze in somehow. And I'm always playing catch-up. It's not like I'm spending money recklessly. I keep a budget, I skip the nights out, I cook at home even when I'm exhausted, and I shop at discount stores. I've stopped going to the gym because the membership fees add up, and even my favorite hobby, reading, has become a financial luxury since I stopped buying books regularly. Instead, I borrow from the library or rely on free digital copies. These small sacrifices feel like tiny betrayals to myself, like I'm shrinking my own world so I can just survive. But the strangest part is the emotional toll. There's this constant hum of anxiety that never fully goes away. When I'm at work, I'm distracted by the thought of bills waiting to be paid or the creeping realization that my savings account is barely a few $100s. I lie awake at night, staring at the ceiling, calculating every cent in my head, wondering if I can afford to fix my car if it breaks down again or how I'll manage if I get sick. The weight of uncertainty presses down on me, heavier than any task or deadline. Sometimes, I feel invisible, not like I'm worthless, but like the system was never built to help someone like me. I'm aware of the bigger economic picture: inflation rising, wages stagnating, housing costs exploding. I hear politicians talk about economic recovery and opportunity, but all I see is how far out of reach it feels. The system feels rigged, or at least indifferent, as if my struggle is just one tiny drop lost in an ocean of corporate profits and policy debates. I remember the dreams I used to have: a cozy apartment in a safe neighborhood, maybe a little garden or a balcony with plants. Traveling, even just once a year, to see new places and meet new people. Going back to school for something I love without the crushing fear of debt. Starting my own business, maybe something creative or helping others. But now those dreams feel like distant stars, beautiful but unreachable. The longer I stay in this grind, the more I convince myself to postpone them indefinitely. I'm learning to cope in small ways. I try to find moments of joy where I can: a walk in the park, a phone call with a friend, cooking a meal that's just a little nicer than usual. Sometimes I journal or write stories to escape into a different world for a while. I've started meditation, not because I'm super spiritual, but because it helps quiet the noise of worry for just a few minutes. And when I can, I let myself cry. It's a release, a way to acknowledge the frustration without letting it consume me. Despite all this, I still hold on to hope. Not some naive belief that things will magically fix themselves, but a stubborn flicker that maybe, someday, I'll find a way to break free. Maybe I'll get a raise, maybe I'll find a better job, or maybe the economy will shift in a way that makes life a bit easier. Until then, I'm learning that surviving isn't just about numbers, it's about resilience, about small victories and gentle kindness to myself. This isn't a story of defeat. It's a story of persistence, even when the world seems stacked against you. Of feeling trapped but still dreaming. Of struggling but still living. Because even when it feels like the system is a cage, I'm not ready to give up on finding a way out. Not yet. Every day, I try to remind myself, I'm more than my bank balance. My worth isn't measured in dollars or debts. And no matter how tight this grip feels, I'm still here, still fighting, still hoping for a future where my dreams aren't just postponed but alive and real. I never thought I'd find myself stuck like this, constantly juggling bills, watching prices climb higher than my paycheck, and feeling like I'm running on a treadmill that just keeps speeding up. It's exhausting. Every day feels like walking a tightrope over a pit that's growing wider and deeper. The financial pressure isn't just about numbers, it's this invisible weight that sits heavy on my chest from the moment I wake up to the moment I fall asleep. I'm 27, working a full-time job that pays just enough to cover the basics, but never enough to get ahead. My rent takes a big chunk of my income, and utilities, groceries, transportation, it all adds up faster than I can keep track of. Lately, even the small things feel like luxuries, a cup of coffee out with friends, a movie ticket, or a spontaneous weekend trip. I watch my bank balance with a kind of quiet dread, the digits teasing me with how close they are to zero. The bills pile up, phone, internet, credit card, and the student loans I thought I'd paid off by now, but they linger like a shadow. It's frustrating because I work hard. I hustle, extra shifts, side gigs, freelancing whenever I can squeeze in the hours. But it's like the system is rigged to keep me where I am. Expenses rise every year, sometimes faster than my salary does. Inflation feels like an invisible tax on my life. Food prices go up, rent goes up, insurance goes up, and my paycheck? It inches up, maybe $1 or $2 here and there, but never enough to bridge the gap. It's this constant game of catch-up that I'm losing. Every month, I make a budget, scrutinizing every dollar. Should I pay this bill now or wait and risk a late fee? Can I skip buying groceries today and stretch what's left in the pantry? It's like a never-ending math test with high stakes, and I'm the only one taking it. The choices I make aren't about convenience or desire, they're survival decisions. And the worst part? No matter how careful I am, an unexpected expense can knock me off balance. A car repair, a medical bill, or even a birthday gift for a family member, it all feels like it chips away at the fragile sense of stability I've managed to build. Emotionally, it's draining. I feel isolated sometimes, like I'm watching life go by from the sidelines while everyone else moves ahead. Friends talk about saving for trips, buying homes, or investing in their futures. Meanwhile, I'm just trying to stay afloat. The pressure makes me anxious and restless. Some nights, I lie awake thinking about what I'm missing out on, or what I might lose if something else goes wrong. The weight of this financial strain creeps into my self-worth, makes me question if I'm doing enough or if I'm simply failing by the standards I've been taught. I used to dream bigger. When I was a kid, I imagined a future full of possibilities, traveling the world, having a place to call my own, starting a family, maybe even opening a small business someday. Those dreams still flicker inside me, but they feel so distant, like stars I can see but can't reach. Every time I think about saving for those goals, I have to push them aside because the immediate needs scream louder. It's a daily sacrifice of hope for the sake of survival. Coping with all this isn't easy. Sometimes I numb the stress with distractions, streaming shows, scrolling through social media, or diving into work. Other times, I try to hold on to small joys, a walk in the park, a call with a friend, cooking a meal from scratch instead of ordering takeout. Those moments remind me there's still some light. But the truth is, the burden never fully lifts. It's a cycle that wears me down but also fuels a quiet determination. I want to break free, to find a way out of this financial trap. I keep telling myself that this is temporary. Maybe it's naive, but it's the only thing that keeps me going. I'm working on new skills, applying for better jobs, trying to build a safety net, even if it's just a tiny one right now. I remind myself that every little step forward counts, even if it feels invisible in the moment. And I hold on to hope that one day, the system won't feel so suffocating. That I'll have enough breathing room to breathe, to dream, to live fully. But for now, I'm here, walking the tightrope, balancing bills and hopes, trying not to fall. It's messy and painful, and sometimes I'm scared it will never end. But I'm still moving forward, one day at a time. I wake up every morning to the same gnawing feeling in my chest, that quiet panic that today will be another day where money rules my every move. It's not the kind of panic that hits like a thunderclap, it's more like a slow leak, draining my energy and hope little by little. I'm in my late 20s, and instead of feeling like I'm just starting to build my life, I feel like I'm already stuck, trapped in a system that's designed to keep me running in place while everything around me moves faster and faster out of reach. My job pays the bills, technically. I'm grateful for that. But the bills themselves, they don't stop coming. Rent climbs higher every year, even though my paycheck stays the same. Groceries, utilities, transportation, everything costs more. Sometimes I think the whole world is conspiring to squeeze me dry. I remember a time, not too long ago, when I thought I'd be able to save a little, maybe even put something away for the future. Now, even that feels like a joke. Saving money feels like a luxury reserved for someone else's life, not mine. I've had to make decisions lately that I never imagined I would. Like choosing between buying a medication I need or paying the electric bill. Or skipping meals some days just to stretch what little cash I have left. It's humiliating, exhausting, and it chips away at my self-worth in a way that's hard to explain. I try not to tell my family how bad it really is because I don't want to be the burden, but inside, I feel more alone than ever. Every time I open my phone and see news about inflation or the cost of living going up, I feel like the ground beneath me is shifting. It's hard to explain how that constant uncertainty gets under your skin. Some days I'm overwhelmed by anxiety, other days, I just feel numb. The stress isn't just financial, it's emotional, too. The pressure to keep up with friends or even just live a normal life feels impossible. When people talk about vacations, new gadgets, or weekend plans, I smile and nod, but inside I'm shrinking away, knowing none of that is for me, not now, maybe not ever. Work is no refuge. I'm always tired, running from one task to another, just trying to hold on. But the job doesn't pay enough to cover all my expenses and leave room for any real breathing space. The weight of this financial squeeze means I rarely sleep well. I lie awake, worrying about what happens if I miss a payment or if an unexpected expense hits. I worry about the future, about what it will look like when I'm 30, 40, 50. Will I ever be free from this constant stress? I remember dreams I had when I was younger. I wanted to travel, to move to a different city, to start a little business, maybe even buy a home someday. Now those dreams feel like distant memories, locked behind a glass wall. I've had to postpone thinking about them because they just feel too heavy, too impossible. It's painful to admit, but sometimes I wonder if I'll ever get there. Still, I try to cope. I focus on small victories, like finding a discount at the grocery store or making a meal stretch for 2 days. I keep a journal where I write down things I'm grateful for, no matter how small. I talk to friends when I can, even if I don't always share everything. Sometimes I just sit quietly and breathe, reminding myself that this moment will pass, even if the weight doesn't lift right away. I hold on to hope in the quiet moments. Hope that things will change, that maybe there's a way out of this cycle. Sometimes I imagine a future where I'm not constantly anxious about money, where I can afford to take care of myself without guilt, where I can dream again without fear. I'm not sure how I'll get there, but I want to believe it's possible. For now, I'm just trying to keep going, day by day, step by step. It's hard, but I'm still here. And maybe that's enough for today. I never thought I'd be this person, caught in a constant tug-of-war with my bank account, always just a little too short, always scrambling to keep up. But here I am, mid-20s, stuck in this relentless cycle where my expenses sprint ahead and my income barely manages a slow, uneven shuffle behind. It's exhausting, and some days it feels like I'm drowning in an ocean of bills I didn't sign up for. I remember when I first started working full-time, fresh out of college. I had hope, the kind that tastes like endless possibilities and new beginnings. I thought, if I work hard and stay steady, I'll be fine. But the reality hit fast and hard. Rent in the city I live in, where I moved for a decent job, keeps climbing. Utilities, groceries, transportation, insurance, student loans, they all seem to have a mind of their own, growing every few months. Meanwhile, my paycheck? It's practically frozen in time. Maybe a tiny raise here and there, but never enough to catch up or breathe easier. I don't want to sound like I'm complaining for the sake of it, but it's the kind of stress that burrows deep under your skin. Every time I look at my bank balance, there's this pit in my stomach, a tight, anxious feeling that whispers, what if something unexpected happens? What if next month is worse? Because it always could be. The last time my phone broke, I had to decide between fixing it quickly or putting that money toward rent. I fixed it, of course. Communication is survival these days, but it still stung knowing I was stealing from another necessity to cover that cost. The strangest part is how this pressure shapes every single decision I make. What I eat, where I go, who I see. I've stopped eating out entirely. It's not just about saving money, it's about not feeling the guilt afterward. When a friend suggests grabbing drinks or going out for dinner, I hesitate, sometimes make excuses. It's hard to explain that I'm not just being stingy, I'm protecting myself from a spiral of expenses I can't afford. Social life becomes rationed. Even buying a book or treating myself to a coffee feels like a luxury, a small rebellion against a system that constantly tells me I'm one emergency away from collapse. I cope in ways that might seem small or silly. I journal a lot, writing out the stress somehow helps me untangle it, if only for a little while. I've also started cooking elaborate meals at home on weekends, not just to save money, but because it gives me a sense of control and accomplishment. I'm always on the lookout for side gigs or freelance work, trying to patch together more income without burning out. But these things only stretch me so thin. And the dreams, I think about those a lot. I used to dream of traveling, exploring new countries, meeting new people. I wanted to live somewhere with a little more space, maybe buy a car. I imagined evenings spent in cozy cafes, writing my novel. But all of those dreams have been put on hold indefinitely. It's hard to plan for a future when your present is so fragile. Sometimes I feel like I'm just existing, surviving day to day, rather than truly living. There's a deep sadness that comes with feeling trapped, too. Trapped in a system that doesn't seem designed for people like me, where wages don't keep pace with rising costs, and every financial step forward feels like climbing a mountain in quicksand. It's not just about money, it's about dignity, about having the freedom to make choices without the constant shadow of "can I afford this?" hanging over me. But I'm still hopeful. Maybe that's the hardest part, to hold on to hope even when everything feels stacked against you. I dream of a day when I'm not scared to open my mail, when I can save without guilt, when I can finally stop postponing the life I want. For now, I keep going, one day at a time, reminding myself that this struggle doesn't define me, even if it feels all-consuming. I am more than my finances, more than my worries, and someday, I'll find a way out of this. Until then, I keep breathing, keep budgeting, keep dreaming quietly in the spaces between paychecks. It's hard to put into words what it feels like to live every day under the weight of financial pressure, especially when that pressure doesn't just come and go, but feels like a constant, tightening grip. I'm 27, and I'm living this reality. It's not the dramatic, once-in-a-while crisis kind of struggle, but the slow, relentless kind that grinds you down over years, sometimes even months. Like an invisible chain wrapped around my ankles, pulling me back just when I think I might be able to step forward. I remember a few years ago, when I first moved out on my own. I was so full of hope, convinced that with hard work and a bit of luck, I'd build a stable life. My first job after college didn't pay much, but I was excited to have my own place and to finally be making my own decisions. Rent was affordable then, groceries didn't feel like an expense to dread, and I could even afford to go out once in a while with friends. It felt manageable, like I was in control, steering my life in the right direction. But then something shifted. The cost of everything started creeping up: rent, utilities, gas, groceries. My paycheck stayed the same. I kept telling myself it was temporary, that if I just kept working hard, maybe asked for a raise, or switched jobs, things would get better. But the reality is the expenses just kept growing faster than my income ever did. There's this awful feeling, almost like a slow-motion sinking, that comes from realizing that no matter how hard you try, you're not getting ahead. You're just trying to keep your head above water. I've had months where I had to make impossible choices. Do I pay the electric bill or fill the fridge? Should I skip a doctor's appointment because the copay feels like too much? Should I tap into my savings just to cover an unexpected car repair, knowing that once it's gone, it might take months to build back up? I've become hyper-aware of every dollar I spend. I carry a notebook where I track every purchase, from the $2 coffee to the $40 grocery run. I make lists, budget obsessively, cut corners wherever I can. But it feels like a losing battle. The prices go up, the wages don't. It's like running on a treadmill that keeps speeding up just as you're getting exhausted. The emotional toll is something I never expected. There's this gnawing anxiety that lives just beneath the surface all the time. It's there when I wake up, wondering if I can cover the upcoming bills. It's there when I'm at work, distracted because I'm trying to figure out how to stretch what little money I have left. It's there at night, when I lie awake thinking about the mounting debt and the growing pile of unpaid things. It's exhausting, mentally and emotionally. Sometimes, when the pressure gets unbearable, I find myself withdrawing from people. It's hard to explain, but socializing feels like a luxury I can't afford. Going out to dinner, catching a movie, even just meeting for coffee, all those little things that used to feel like parts of a normal life now feel like impossible indulgences. I don't want to be that person who's always saying no because they can't afford it, but more often than not, I do. I've had to postpone dreams, big ones and small ones. The dream of traveling, which I thought I'd do after graduating college, feels out of reach. Even visiting family across the country is too expensive to justify. I had hopes of buying a car, or even saving for a down payment on a place of my own someday, but those goals keep moving further away. Sometimes, I feel like I'm stuck in this endless loop where I'm surviving but never thriving. I cope in small ways. I've learned to find moments of joy in things that don't cost money: walks in the park, reading books from the library, cooking meals at home instead of eating out. I keep close friendships that don't revolve around spending money, late-night phone calls or Netflix marathons on the couch. Those things help, but they don't erase the underlying pressure. Sometimes, I catch myself dreaming again, imagining a future where the math finally works out, where my paycheck grows enough to cover more than just the basics, where I can put money aside without constantly worrying if I'm going to lose my footing. But those dreams often feel fragile, like they could shatter if I think about them too hard. It's hard to stay hopeful when the system feels rigged to keep people like me locked in place. I don't blame myself for this. I work hard. I try to be responsible. But the truth is, the economic environment makes it almost impossible to break free. It's not just me, it's a whole generation feeling trapped by rising costs and stagnant wages. Sometimes I wonder if the people making decisions about wages and rents even realize what it's like to live like this, constantly juggling, constantly worrying, constantly afraid of what's next. Despite everything, I'm still here, still trying. I remind myself that survival is a form of strength, even if it doesn't feel like victory. I keep pushing forward, hoping that someday, the scales will tip in my favor. Until then, I carry the weight, making the best of each day, holding on to the small sparks of hope that keep me moving. Because giving up isn't really an option. Not yet. That's what it feels like, this ongoing, quiet struggle to keep going, even when the system seems designed to hold you down. I wake up every morning feeling like I'm already behind, like the world has set this invisible timer, and I'm perpetually running out of time, money, and options all at once. It's a strange kind of exhaustion, one that isn't just physical but weighs heavily on my mind and heart. At 26, I thought I'd be a few steps further, maybe saving up for a trip, paying off student loans with some breathing room, or at least not stressing about whether I can cover rent this month. Instead, I'm trapped in this relentless cycle where expenses sprint ahead while my income drags behind, leaving me scrambling just to keep up. The economic environment feels like a storm I'm forced to weather without an umbrella. Gas prices rise, rent creeps up every year, groceries cost more than they did 6 months ago, and utilities spike unexpectedly when the seasons change. My paycheck, though steady, doesn't grow nearly as fast as the bills do. Sometimes I feel like the system itself is designed to keep people like me in a loop, just enough money to survive, but never enough to truly live or plan beyond the immediate. It's maddening and isolating. Every choice feels weighed down by money. Do I skip the doctor's appointment because I can't afford the copay? Do I eat instant noodles again this week or splurge on fresh produce and hope it stretches? When a friend invites me out, I hesitate because $15 for a drink might mean a week of peanut butter sandwiches at home. There's a constant negotiation with myself about what I can justify, what counts as a need versus a want. And the line blurs so easily. Sometimes, I catch myself scrolling through social media, seeing friends posting about weekend getaways, new gadgets, or just casual dinners out, and I feel this sharp pang of envy mixed with shame. Why can't I be like that? Why do I have to live so cautiously, so tightly wound around every dollar? I remind myself that social media is curated and incomplete, but it doesn't stop the sting. Emotionally, the pressure gnaws at me. There are days when I feel invisible, like my struggles are small or not worthy of attention, especially because I'm not drowning in debt or homelessness. But it's the quiet, ongoing grind that breaks me down, the stress that builds slowly, like rust spreading inside. It's hard to sleep when your mind races over how to pay the next bill or what will happen if your hours get cut. Anxiety is a constant shadow, and sometimes it turns into sadness or frustration that I have to live this way. I try to cope in small ways. I've learned to budget ruthlessly, tracking every cent, which helps me feel a little control. I pick up odd freelance gigs when I can, though they're never reliable and sometimes just add to the exhaustion. I cling to routines that ground me, morning coffee from home instead of buying out, walking instead of taking the bus when I can, cooking meals that stretch ingredients. I talk to a few close friends who understand, and sometimes just venting helps release the pressure. Still, I know these are temporary fixes, not solutions. The dreams I had when I was younger, traveling, buying a home, starting a family someday, feel like they've been shoved to the back of the shelf, covered in dust. I tell myself they're postponed, not gone, but the longer the postponement lasts, the harder it feels to believe. Sometimes I fantasize about a sudden windfall, but then remind myself that's not real life. I want to believe that if I keep pushing, keep making sacrifices, something will shift. But what if it doesn't? Sometimes I imagine what life would be like if the economic system wasn't stacked this way. What if wages rose with inflation? What if housing was affordable? What if healthcare didn't come with a fear of bankruptcy? I don't want handouts, I want a fair chance. Is that too much to ask? Despite everything, I hold on to hope, maybe fragile, but real. I hold on to the hope that I'll find a career path that pays more, that I'll gain skills and opportunities to move out of this cycle. I hope for a future where I can look back on these hard times and see them as a chapter, not the whole story. Sometimes hope is the only thing that keeps me going through the nights of worry and the days of tight budgets. This is my truth, a young adult caught in the squeeze of rising costs and stagnant paychecks, doing everything possible just to survive while dreaming quietly of a life that feels just out of reach. It's a daily struggle with no easy answers, but I'm still here, still fighting, still hoping. And maybe that's enough, for now. It's hard to put into words what it feels like to live every day knowing the weight of money pressing down on your chest. I'm 26 now, and honestly, I thought by this age I'd have at least a little breathing room, maybe a steady savings account, a decent job that pays enough to cover the basics without a constant gnawing anxiety. But here I am, juggling bills, watching prices climb faster than my paycheck, and feeling like I'm stuck in an endless loop that I can't break free from. The truth is, the economic landscape today feels like a trap designed to keep people like me, young, hopeful, working, just barely afloat. Rent hikes come every year, groceries cost more with each trip to the store, and the small luxuries that once made life enjoyable are slipping farther out of reach. Every time I open my bank app, I'm met with a harsh reality check: the number's not growing, and somehow, it needs to stretch farther. I work full-time, but even with a steady job, the paycheck disappears almost as soon as it arrives. Utilities, transportation, student loans, cell phone bills, the essentials never stop. I catch myself calculating costs in my head throughout the day. If I skip lunch today and bring leftovers from home tomorrow, I can save a few dollars. If I don't turn the heat on at night, maybe my gas bill won't spike as much. It's exhausting. The strangest part is how this constant pressure shapes my mindset. I'm always on edge, mentally tallying expenses and trying to predict the next surprise bill or unexpected cost. I've become hyper-aware of every decision I make. Should I really buy those shoes, or wait until next month? Can I afford to join my friends for a night out, or is that just another stress I don't need? Simple things that used to be fun or relaxing now come with an invisible price tag. Emotionally, it's draining. I feel this persistent low-level anxiety, like a dull ache I carry everywhere. Sometimes, I catch myself spiraling into these dark thoughts, questioning if I'll ever get ahead, or if I'm just meant to exist paycheck to paycheck forever. It's scary to admit, but there are nights when I lie awake, heart pounding, worried about what would happen if something unexpected breaks down: a car, a laptop, a health issue. Without a financial cushion, those things aren't just inconveniences, they're crises. I've had to put so many dreams on hold. The idea of moving out to my own place, saving for travel, or even thinking about further education feels like a distant fantasy. I remember when I was younger, I had this vision of living comfortably, maybe owning a small home, and having the freedom to explore the world a bit. Now, those visions feel like whispers from another lifetime, drowned out by the daily struggle to keep the lights on. To cope, I've learned to be resourceful and disciplined. I meal prep obsessively, hunt for discounts, and try to cut unnecessary expenses wherever possible. I find small moments of joy in free things: long walks, reading from the library, or video calls with friends. Those moments remind me that life isn't only about money, but the pressure often feels so overwhelming that it's hard to hold on to hope. Sometimes, I vent to close friends or family, and while they're supportive, I don't want to burden them too much. There's this stigma around talking openly about financial stress, as if struggling financially is a personal failure rather than a symptom of a broken system. That makes it even harder to be vulnerable and ask for help. Despite all this, I try to keep a flicker of hope alive. I remind myself that I'm not alone, that many people my age face the same challenges, and that change is possible, even if it feels slow and far away. I think about what small steps I can take to improve my situation: maybe upskilling, looking for a better paying job, or finding side gigs that won't burn me out. I want to believe that someday, I'll look back on this period as a tough chapter that taught me resilience and grit. For now, I'm learning to be patient with myself and the process, to celebrate small victories like paying off a bill or managing to save a little bit of money, even if it's not much. I'm trying to hold on to the idea that life isn't just about surviving but eventually finding a way to thrive, even if that path is longer and harder than I ever imagined. In the quiet moments, when the noise of bills and expenses fades for just a second, I still dream. I dream of a future where I don't have to count pennies, where I can take that trip I always wanted, where my worries aren't about if I can afford to eat but about what I want to do next. And even though that future feels far away, I'm holding on to it tightly because it's the light that keeps me moving forward in this difficult, expensive world. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos. Also, leave a comment, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.